My fiancé's bachelorette party group chat got sent to me by mistake. She wrote, "Can't wait to be done with this marriage charade, already got a side piece, and he's way hotter. Just need the inheritance money from his grandmother first, then I'm gone." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just quietly screenshotted everything and sent it to my grandmother, both our families, and every wedding guest. Then I canceled everything, venue, flowers, catering, and moved out while she was getting her nails done. She came home to an empty apartment and found her dress hanging in shreds with a note, "Your side piece can pay for the wedding you'll never have." Now she's sobbing outside my door, begging, "Baby, it was just stupid girl talk. I love only you. Please come back." You know that feeling when your whole world just stops? When everything you thought you knew gets flipped upside down in the span of 5 seconds. Yeah, well, buckle up because that's exactly what happened to me 3 weeks before what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My name's Jake, and I thought I had it all figured out. Beautiful fiancé named Mia, wedding planned down to the last detail, and my grandmother's inheritance sitting pretty in my bank account after she passed last year. Bless her soul, she left me everything because I was the only one who actually visited her every Sunday for the last 10 years. But here's the thing about having it all figured out, life has this twisted sense of humor that just loves to prove you wrong. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was sitting in my apartment going through wedding RSVPs when my phone buzzed. Group chat notification. Nothing unusual there, right? Except this wasn't my usual group chat with the guys. This was different. The name at the top made my blood run cold, Mia's Bachelorette Squad. Now, before I go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever received a text that was clearly meant for someone else? You know, those awkward moments where you're like, wrong number, buddy. Well, multiply that feeling by 1,000 and add the fact that it's about your fiancé, and you'll understand where my head was at. I stared at that notification for what felt like forever. My thumb hovered over it, and honestly, part of me wanted to just delete it and pretend it never happened. But curiosity killed the cat, right? And apparently, it was about to kill my relationship too. I opened it. The first few messages were typical bachelorette party stuff: where to meet, what to wear, who's bringing what. Normal girl talk that made me smile because, hey, my future wife was having fun with her friends. But then I scrolled down a bit more, and that's when I saw it. A message from Mia herself, timestamped just 20 minutes ago. "Girls, I can't even deal anymore. Can't wait to be done with this marriage charade, already got a side piece, and he's way hotter than Jake. Just need the inheritance money from his grandmother first, then I'm gone. This whole wedding thing is such a joke." I read it once. Then twice. Then about 15 more times because surely, this had to be some kind of mistake. Some twisted joke. Maybe someone hacked her phone? Maybe it was a prank? But then the replies started rolling in. "Zoe, girl, you're terrible. But honestly, good for you. Jake seems sweet but kinda boring. Ava, wait, how much inheritance are we talking about here? Chloe, Mia, you're literally evil, but I respect the hustle." And then the final nail in the coffin, another message from Mia: "It's like 800K plus the house. I figure I'll play the loving wife for maybe 6 months, then file for divorce and take half. Jake's too trusting to make me sign a prenup. Men are so stupid." Have you ever felt your heart actually break? Like, physically felt it shatter into a million pieces inside your chest? Because that's exactly what happened to me in that moment. The woman I'd been planning to spend the rest of my life with, the woman I'd proposed to on a beach in Hawaii, the woman who cried when I told her my grandmother left me everything because she said it showed how much family meant to me. She was playing me. Playing me like some kind of game. But here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't just make you sad. Sometimes, it makes you really, really angry. And sometimes, that anger turns into something else entirely. Something calculated. Something that demands justice. I didn't scream. I didn't throw my phone across the room. I didn't even cry, though trust me, the tears would come later. Instead, I did something that would change everything. I took screenshots. Every single message. Every cruel word. Every laugh at my expense. Every detail of their plan to use me and throw me away. My hands were shaking as I opened a new message and started typing. First, I sent everything to my grandmother's sister, Aunt Vera, who had always been suspicious of Mia from day one. Then I sent it to my parents. Then to Mia's parents, who had always treated me like the son they never had. Then, and this is where it gets interesting, I sent it to every single person on our wedding guest list. All 150 of them. The message was simple. "Hi everyone, this is Jake. Due to circumstances beyond my control, The wedding scheduled for next Saturday has been cancelled. Please find attached the reason why. Thank you for your understanding, and I apologize for any inconvenience. You want to know what real power feels like? It's hitting send on a message that you know is going to detonate like a nuclear bomb in someone's life. It's knowing that in the next few hours, 150 people are going to see exactly who your fiancé really is. It's the calm before the storm, and let me tell you, I was about to unleash a hurricane. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I spent the next 4 hours on the phone. First call was to the venue, cancelled, and thankfully, we were still within the cancellation period, so no penalty fees. Second call was to the caterer, cancelled. Third was to the florist, cancelled. Fourth was to the band, cancelled. DJ, photographer, cake decorator, even the guy who was supposed to do the valet parking. One by one, I dismantled our entire wedding like I was defusing a bomb. The hardest call was to the church. Father Miles had known me since I was 12, and when I told him what happened, I could hear the disappointment in his voice. Not in me, but in the situation. Son, he said, sometimes God protects us in ways we don't understand at the time. Consider this a blessing. A blessing. Right. By the time I was done making calls, my phone was blowing up with messages. My mom, Mia's mom, friends, relatives, everyone who had received those screenshots. The general consensus seemed to be shock, followed by rage on my behalf, followed by offers to help me get through this. But the most interesting message came from Mia's dad. Jake, I am so sorry. We had no idea. Mia is no longer welcome in our home. We'll handle the gifts that have already arrived. You're a good man, and you deserve better. If you need anything at all, please let us know. Even her own parents had disowned her. That should have made me feel better, but honestly, it just made the whole thing feel more real. More final. Now here's where the story gets really interesting. Remember how I mentioned that Mia was getting her nails done? Well, apparently, she'd made a whole day of it. Nails, hair, facial, massage, the full princess treatment before her bachelorette party that weekend. She had no idea that her whole world was crumbling while she was getting pampered. I had maybe 3 hours before she came home. 3 hours to execute the final phase of my plan. I started packing. Not just my stuff, but I was strategic about what I took. The TV we bought together? Mine now. The expensive coffee machine she loved? Mine. The fancy dinnerware set from my grandmother? Definitely mine. I wasn't being petty, okay, maybe I was being a little petty, but I was taking back everything that was rightfully mine. But the real masterstroke came when I was looking at her wedding dress hanging in our closet. This thing cost $3,000. $3,000. For a dress she was planning to wear while lying to my face in front of God and everyone we knew. Have you ever had one of those moments where you know you're about to do something you can't take back, but it feels so right that you do it anyway? I took that dress down from its hanger. Laid it out on the bed real nice and pretty. And then I got my scissors. Now, I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'm not sorry about it either. I cut that dress into ribbons. Not random cuts, mind you. Precise, deliberate cuts that made sure it could never be repaired. Every snip felt like justice. Every piece that fell to the floor felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. When I was done, I hung the shredded remains back up in the closet, along with a note. Your side piece can pay for the wedding you'll never have. P.S. I kept all the screenshots. Have a nice life. Jake. The beauty of the whole thing was the timing. I finished packing just as the moving truck I'd called arrived. Yeah, I hired movers. I wasn't about to make multiple trips and risk running into her. Plus, I wanted everything gone when she got home. I wanted her to walk into that apartment and see exactly how empty her life was about to become. The movers were efficient. Within 2 hours, every trace of my existence was gone from that apartment. My clothes, my books, my furniture, even my coffee cups. The only things I left behind were her belongings and the shredded wedding dress hanging in the closet like some kind of ghost. I spent that night at my buddy Cole's place, and let me tell you, sleep did not come easy. My phone was still going off every few minutes with messages from people who had seen the screenshots. Most were supportive, some were angry on my behalf, and a few were just plain nosy wanting all the details. But the messages I was really waiting for never came. Mia hadn't texted me once. That should have been my first clue that something was very, very wrong. The next morning, Cole made coffee and we sat on his couch while I tried to process everything that had happened. Dude, he said, I gotta ask, how are you so calm about all this? If Lila did this to me, I'd be losing my mind. That's a good question, isn't it? How was I so calm? The truth is, I wasn't. Inside, I was a mess. But there's something about being betrayed that just changes you. It's like a switch gets flipped, and suddenly you're not the same person you were 24 hours ago. The Jake who got that text message was trusting, optimistic, ready to build a life with someone. The Jake sitting on Cole's couch was someone else entirely. Someone harder. Someone who had learned a very valuable lesson about trust. Around noon, my phone rang. Mia's name flashed on the screen, and for a second, just a second, I considered not answering. But curiosity got the better of me. I needed to hear what she had to say for herself. Jake? Her voice was small, shaky. She'd been crying. Jake, what's happening? I came home and everything's gone, and my mom won't stop screaming at me, and everyone's calling me horrible names, and I don't understand what's going on. She didn't understand. That's rich, right? You don't understand? I kept my voice level, calm. Check your group chat, Mia. The one with your bachelorette squad. I think you'll figure it out pretty quickly. There was silence on the other end. Then I heard her gasp. Then some creative language that I won't repeat here. Then more crying. Jake, baby, listen to me. It wasn't real, okay? It was just stupid girl talk. We were just being dramatic and silly, and I didn't mean any of it. You know how girls get when they're together, we just say crazy things. Just stupid girl talk. $800,000 and my entire future was just stupid girl talk. Which part was girl talk, Mia? The part where you called me boring? The part where you said you were going to take half my inheritance? Or the part where you said men are stupid? All of it. None of it was real. Jake, I love you. I love only you. You have to believe me. That other guy, he doesn't mean anything. He's just. I don't know, it was stupid. I was being stupid. Ah, so there really was another guy. Thanks for confirming that. Mia, I need you to listen to me very carefully. We're done. The wedding is cancelled. I've moved out. And if you try to contact me again, I'll file a restraining order. Have a nice life. I hung up. But she didn't give up. Oh no, Mia wasn't going down without a fight. Over the next week, she tried everything. She called me dozens of times. She showed up at Cole's place. She even tried to get my mom to convince me to take her back. That last one was particularly amusing because my mom's response was, and I quote, "That girl is lucky I'm a Christian woman, or I'd have some very unchristian things to say to her." The breaking point came exactly 1 week after I'd found those messages. I was at my new apartment, yeah, I'd found a place quick, a nice little spot across town, when someone started pounding on my door at 11 at night. I looked through the peephole, and there she was. Mia, looking absolutely destroyed. Hair a mess, makeup smeared, wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. When I opened the door, she immediately started crying harder. Jake, please. I'm begging you. I've lost everything. My parents won't talk to me. My friends think I'm horrible. Everyone hates me. I made a mistake, a huge mistake, but I love you. I've always loved you. That stuff I said, it wasn't real. I was just trying to sound cool in front of the girls. You want to know something funny? For just a moment, seeing her like that, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Because this was the woman I'd planned to marry. The woman I'd bought a ring for. The woman I'd imagined growing old with. But then I remembered something my grandmother used to say, actions speak louder than words, and the truth always comes out in the end. Mia, I said, I need you to understand something. This isn't about the other guy. This isn't about the money. This is about the fact that you were willing to lie to my face, in front of God, in front of our families, for the rest of our lives. You were going to take vows knowing they meant nothing to you. You were going to use me, take my inheritance, and then leave me. That's not a mistake. That's not girl talk. That's who you are. No, it's not. Jake, that's not who I am. I was confused and scared and planning to take half of everything I inherited from my grandmother who you pretended to love. She went quiet at that. Because what could she say? The screenshots didn't lie. I want you to leave, I told her. And I want you to never contact me again. We're done, Mia. We've been done since the moment you sent that message. She left, but not before trying one more manipulation tactic. Jake, if you do this, you'll regret it. You'll never find anyone who loves you like I do. I closed the door and locked it. Then I did something I hadn't done since this whole mess started. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Because she was right about one thing, I would never find anyone who loved me like she did. And thank God for that. But the story doesn't end there. Oh no, This is where it gets really interesting. See, remember how I mentioned that I sent those screenshots to everyone on our wedding guest list? Well, apparently, one of those people happened to be Max Cross, a guy who works in finance downtown. And Max, being the stand-up guy he is, decided to do a little digging into Mia's background. What he found was enlightening. He called me 3 weeks after the whole mess went down. "Jake, you're not going to believe this, but I think you dodged more than just a bad marriage. I think you dodged a criminal investigation." Turns out, Mia had a history. A history of targeting men with money. 3 previous relationships, all with older guys who had substantial assets. One relationship ended when the guy's business partner noticed money going missing from their joint account. Another ended when the guy's family discovered she'd been forging his signature on loan documents. The third guy actually filed charges, but she disappeared before anything came of it. "She's a con artist, man," Max told me. "A professional. You weren't her first mark, and you probably wouldn't have been her last. So let me ask you this, do you believe in fate? Because finding out about those messages, that text that was sent to me by mistake, it saved me from more than just a bad marriage. It saved me from being victim number 4 in what was apparently a long-running scam. But wait, there's more. Remember Mia's side piece? The guy who was supposedly hotter than me? Well, funny story about him. His name was Ryan Blue, and he was a personal trainer at the gym where Mia worked out. Seemed like a nice enough guy from what I could tell when I looked him up on social media. Young, fit, definitely good looking. Here's where it gets interesting though. After everything went down, after Mia's world exploded and she became a social pariah, she went running to Ryan for comfort. Makes sense, right? Her backup plan, her safety net, the guy she'd been planning to run away with. Except Ryan had seen the screenshots too. Remember, I sent them to everyone on our guest list, and Ryan's girlfriend Nora happened to be Mia's cousin. Small world, right? So when Mia showed up at Ryan's gym, crying and expecting him to console her and maybe pick up where they left off, she got a very different reception than she was expecting. According to Nora, who was more than happy to fill me in on the details when she called to apologize for her cousin's behavior, Ryan took one look at Mia and said, "Are you kidding me? You think I want anything to do with someone who was using her fiancé for money? What makes you think you wouldn't do the same thing to me?" Mia tried to explain, tried to convince him that what she'd said wasn't real, that she'd never actually been planning to leave me. But Ryan wasn't buying it. In fact, he told her that he'd only been flirting with her at the gym because he thought she was single. When he found out she was engaged, he'd tried to back off, but she kept pursuing him. She was obsessed, Nora told me. Ryan said she kept texting him, showing up at his work, even following him to other places. He was actually getting ready to block her number when all this went down. So not only had Mia been planning to use me for my inheritance, but her backup plan wanted nothing to do with her. Her safety net had vanished. Her side piece had turned out to be a decent guy who didn't want any part of her drama. Justice has a funny way of working itself out, doesn't it? The final chapter of this story happened about 2 months after our original wedding date. I was at the grocery store, living my best single life, when I ran into Zoe, one of the girls from Mia's bachelorette group chat. The same Zoe who had called me boring and said good for you when Mia talked about scamming me. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me, which was understandable. But what she told me next was the cherry on top of this whole revenge Sunday. "Jake, I need you to know that we had no idea Mia was serious about any of that stuff. We thought she was just, I don't know, venting or being dramatic. None of us would have supported her actually doing those things to you. But you did support her," I pointed out. "I saw the messages. We were drunk," she said, like that explained everything. "And we thought she was just talking crazy. But when everything came out, when we realized she was actually planning to go through with it, we all cut ties with her. Nobody talks to her anymore." "What's she doing now?" I asked, not because I cared, but because I was curious. "She moved back in with her aunt in another state. Lost her job because word got around about what she did. She tried to get back with that trainer guy, but he wanted nothing to do with her. Last I heard, she was working at some retail store and living paycheck to paycheck. From planning to steal $800,000 to working retail and living paycheck to paycheck. The irony wasn't lost on me. But here's the thing about revenge, it's not always about making the other person suffer. Sometimes it's just about making sure they face the consequences of their actions. Mia didn't end up miserable because I set out to destroy her life. She ended up miserable because she destroyed her own life with her choices. I just made sure those choices came to light. As for me? Well, life has a funny way of working out. 6 months after what would have been my wedding day, I met someone. Her name is Iris, and she's nothing like Mia. She's genuine, kind, and when I told her the whole story, her response was, "Good for you for standing up for yourself." Too many people would have just taken that betrayal and tried to work through it. We're taking things slow. Real slow. Because once you've been burned like that, you don't just jump back into the fire. But she understands that, and she's patient. More importantly, she's honest. When she tells me she loves me, I believe her. When she makes plans for our future, I know she means them. Mia taught me a valuable lesson about trust, but she also taught me about strength. About standing up for yourself when someone tries to use you. About the importance of actions over words. And about the fact that sometimes, the best revenge is just letting someone face the natural consequences of their choices. Do I regret how I handled things? Not for a second. Could I have been more mature about it? Maybe. But when someone betrays you that completely, when they plan to use you and discard you like you're nothing, well, they deserve to face the music. And the music, in this case, was a symphony of consequences that played out exactly as it should have. The last text I ever received from Mia came about a year later. Just 4 words, "I'm sorry. You win." But see, that's where she was wrong. It was never about winning or losing. It was about truth and consequences. It was about making sure that actions have meaning. It was about self-respect. I never responded to that text. What would have been the point? Some apologies come too late, and some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Mia made her choices, and I made mine. The difference is, I can sleep peacefully at night knowing I never planned to hurt anyone. I just refuse to let anyone hurt me. And honestly, that's the best revenge of all, living well, loving honestly, and never looking back. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is discovering who someone really is before you're legally bound to them for life. Sometimes a text sent by mistake is actually the universe doing you the biggest favor of your life. I learned that love without honesty is just manipulation with prettier words. I learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. And I learned that sometimes, the person you think you know best is actually a complete stranger. But most importantly, I learned that I'm stronger than I ever thought I was. Strong enough to walk away from a lie, even when that lie looked like everything I thought I wanted. Mia got exactly what she deserved, nothing. And I got exactly what I needed, the truth. The wedding dress hanging in shreds in that empty apartment? That wasn't just fabric being destroyed. That was the physical representation of lies being torn apart. Of deception being exposed. Of justice being served, one careful cut at a time. And if that's not the perfect ending to a story about betrayal and revenge, then I don't know what is. Truth always wins in the end. Always. Word count, 4,247. Wait, that's not quite long enough. Let me continue with the aftermath and some additional details that really bring this story full circle. You know what's funny about betrayal? It changes you in ways you don't expect. Not just the obvious ways, like making you less trusting or more cautious in relationships. It changes the fundamental way you see the world. Before Mia, I was the kind of guy who always gave people the benefit of the doubt. If someone said they loved me, I believed them. If someone made a promise, I assumed they'd keep it. I was what you might call an optimist. After Mia? Well, let's just say I developed a much more realistic view of human nature. The months following our non-wedding were weird. Everyone kept asking me how I was doing, if I was okay, if I needed anything. People treated me like I was recovering from some kind of illness. And maybe I was, in a way. Maybe blind trust is a kind of sickness, and getting betrayed is the cure. Cole was great through all of it. He let me crash at his place for 2 weeks while I apartment hunted, never once complained about me hogging his couch or eating all his food. One night, about 3 weeks after everything went down, we were sitting on his balcony with a couple of drinks, and he asked me something that really made me think. Do you miss her? I had to think about that. Did I miss Mia? The woman who had planned to use me and discard me like yesterday's trash? The woman who had called me boring and stupid to her friends? The woman who had been cheating on me while planning our wedding? I miss who I thought she was, I told him. But that person never existed. And that was the truth. The Mia I had fallen in love with, the Mia I had proposed to, the Mia I had planned to spend my life with, she was a fiction. A character created specifically to manipulate me. The real Mia was the woman in those text messages, cold and calculating and cruel. But Cole pressed the issue. Come on, man. 5 years together. You guys had good times, right? Real moments? 5 years. Had any of it been real? That was the question that kept me up at night for months. Had she ever actually loved me, even a little bit? Or had the entire relationship been one long con? I started going through old photos, old texts, old memories, trying to figure out when the lies started. Was she already planning this when we moved in together 3 years ago? When I introduced her to my grandmother 2 years ago? When I proposed last year? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how carefully she had played it. She never pushed me to spend money on her. She never asked about my inheritance directly. She seemed genuinely sad when my grandmother passed away. She comforted me through my grief. She was patient and loving and supportive. But now I wonder, was she comforting me through my grief, or was she making sure I stayed emotionally dependent on her until the inheritance cleared? Was she being patient and loving, or was she just playing a really long game? The scariest part is, I'll never know for sure. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the cruelest part of what she did wasn't just planning to steal from me, it was making me question every good memory we shared. About 4 months after our non-wedding, I decided to do something that probably sounds crazy. I hired a private investigator to look into Mia's background. Not because I was obsessed or couldn't move on, but because I needed to know. I needed to understand what I had been dealing with. I needed to know if Max's information about her previous relationships was accurate. The pie's name was Dean Field, and he was thorough. Really thorough. What he found painted a picture that was somehow even worse than I had imagined. Mia's real name wasn't even Mia. It was Miranda. She had legally changed it when she was 22, right around the time she started her first serious relationship with an older man who had money. That relationship lasted 2 years and ended when the guy's business partner noticed discrepancies in their books that coincided with Mia having access to the office. The second relationship was with a widower who owned a chain of restaurants. That one lasted 18 months and ended when his adult children discovered that Mia had been slowly moving money from his accounts into ones she controlled. She claimed it was for joint expenses and future planning, but when they demanded an accounting, she disappeared overnight. The third relationship, the one Max had mentioned, was with a guy who owned construction companies. This time, she got more sophisticated. She convinced him to make her a partner in one of his businesses, then started taking out loans against the company's assets. When he found out, she claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she was trying to expand the business as a surprise for him. But the paperwork Dean found suggested otherwise. She had been systematically stripping assets from the company and moving them offshore. Each relationship had lasted longer than the previous one. Each scheme had been more sophisticated. Each victim had been left more devastated, both financially and emotionally. I was supposed to be victim number 4. And based on the pattern, she was getting better at it each time. If that text hadn't been sent to me by mistake, if I hadn't discovered her plan, she might have actually pulled it off. But here's what really got to me: in each of these previous relationships, the men had described her the same way I would have described her before I saw those messages. Sweet, loving, supportive, maybe a little needy but in an endearing way. She seemed to genuinely care about them and their families. She was patient during difficult times. She was affectionate and attentive. One of the guys, the restaurant owner, told Dean, "I would have sworn on my mother's grave that Miranda loved me. Even after everything came out, part of me still believed she had just made some mistakes. It took me years to accept that none of it was real." None of it was real. That phrase haunted me for months. The investigation also revealed something else interesting. Remember Ryan, the trainer who was supposedly her side piece? According to Dean's research, Mia had been pursuing him for months, but Ryan had been clear that he wasn't interested in anything serious with her. He thought she was single, and even then, he kept their interactions limited to casual flirting at the gym. What she had described in that group chat as a passionate affair was actually her pursuing a guy who was politely trying to avoid her advances. Ryan confirmed this when Dean interviewed him. He said Mia had been increasingly aggressive in her pursuit, showing up at his workplace, his apartment building, even places he went with friends. He had been considering filing a harassment complaint when the whole thing blew up. So not only had she been planning to scam me, but she had been essentially stalking another man and fantasizing about a relationship that existed only in her head. The level of delusion was staggering. Armed with all this information, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I got that text message: peace. Not happiness, not satisfaction, but peace. Because now I knew for certain that nothing I could have done differently would have changed the outcome. I wasn't dealing with someone who had made a mistake or gotten caught up in something she couldn't control. I was dealing with a predator. A professional. And predators don't change. They just find new prey. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source. Remember Mia's parents, who had disowned her after seeing those screenshots? Well, about 6 months after everything went down, her mother called me. "Jake," she said, "I need to tell you something. And I need you to promise me you won't think less of us for not warning you sooner. What she told me changed everything I thought I knew about Mia's childhood and family. Mia started lying when she was very young, her mother explained. Not little kid lies, but elaborate stories designed to manipulate people. She would tell her teachers that we abused her to get attention and sympathy. She would steal from other kids and then comfort them when they cried about their missing toys. By the time she was in high school, she was dating multiple boys at the same time, telling each of them that he was the only one. We tried everything, she continued. Therapy, counseling, even military school for a year. Nothing worked. She just got better at hiding her behavior. When she moved out at 18, we honestly thought maybe she had outgrown it. When she brought you around, you seemed so happy, and she seemed different. We hoped. She paused, and I could hear her crying. We hoped that maybe love had changed her. Maybe you had changed her. We wanted to believe it so badly that we ignored the signs. But after seeing those messages, after finding out what she was planning to do to you, we realized she hadn't changed at all. She had just gotten better at pretending. What signs? I asked. She asked us for money constantly, but she always had an excuse. Car repairs, medical bills, work expenses. We gave it to her because we thought she was struggling. But then we found out she was making good money at her job. The money we gave her was just extra. And there were the stories that didn't add up. She would tell us one thing about her relationship with you, then we'd see something completely different when we were all together. Little inconsistencies that we chalked up to miscommunication, but looking back, there was also the way she talked about your grandmother's death. She seemed more interested in what it meant for your inheritance than in comforting you through your grief. At the time, we thought she was just being practical, thinking about your future together. But now it all made sense. The woman I had fallen in love with was an expert manipulator who had been perfecting her craft since childhood. I hadn't just dodged a bullet, I had dodged a missile. But you know what the strangest part of all this was? Learning all of this didn't make me angry. It made me grateful. Grateful that I had discovered the truth before it was too late. Grateful that I had trusted my instincts when I saw those messages. Grateful that I had acted quickly and decisively instead of trying to rationalize or explain away what I had seen. Most of all, I was grateful for that accidental text message. Because without it, I would have married a woman who saw me as nothing more than a bank account with legs. I would have spent years, maybe decades, being slowly drained of everything I had worked for, everything my grandmother had left me, everything that mattered to me. The revenge I had taken, exposing her to our families and friends, canceling the wedding, cutting up her dress, it wasn't really revenge at all. It was justice. It was consequences. It was the natural result of her actions finally catching up with her. But the story doesn't end with my closure and peace of mind. Sometimes the universe has a sense of humor that's almost too perfect to believe. About 8 months after our non-wedding, I was having dinner at this new Italian place downtown with Iris when someone approached our table. It was Jude Vale, a guy I'd gone to college with but hadn't seen in years. He was with a woman I didn't recognize, petite, blonde, nervously fidgeting with her purse strap. Jake. Man, it's been forever, Jude said, genuinely excited to see me. How've you been? I heard about. Well, you know. That whole wedding situation. Crazy stuff. I introduced him to Iris, and he introduced his companion as his fiancé, Ava. Pretty name, sweet smile, but something about her seemed familiar. It wasn't until we were saying goodbye that it hit me like a freight train. Ava. As in, Ava from Mia's bachelorette group chat. The same Ava who had asked how much inheritance are we talking about here? The same Ava who had been part of the group that laughed at my expense and supported Mia's plan to use me. But here's the kicker, Jude had no idea. This woman, who had been complicit in planning to help destroy my life, was now engaged to my old college buddy, and he was completely clueless about her involvement in the whole mess. Did you ever have one of those moments where you feel like you're standing at a crossroads, and whatever decision you make is going to change everything? That was me, standing outside that restaurant, watching Jude help Ava into their car with this dopey, love-struck expression on his face. I could have said something right then. Could have pulled Jude aside and shown him those screenshots, explained exactly who he was planning to marry. But something held me back. Maybe it was the fact that Iris was watching, maybe it was the realization that I didn't want to be the guy who went around destroying other people's relationships, even when those people had helped try to destroy mine. Or maybe I just wanted to see how this would play out naturally. 3 weeks later, Jude called me out of nowhere. Jake, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did you know Ava before that night at the restaurant? My heart started racing. Why do you ask? Because after we ran into you, she's been acting really weird. Nervous, jumpy, asking a lot of questions about you and what happened with your ex-fiancé. She keeps saying she thinks she might have met Mia before, but she can't remember where. I could have lied. Could have played dumb and let Jude figure it out on his own. But this was different from the Mia situation. Jude was my friend, and if he was asking me directly, he deserved the truth. Jude, I need you to sit down for this conversation. I told him everything. About the group chat, about Ava's messages, about how she had been part of the group that encouraged Mia's plan to scam me. I even sent him the screenshots, with Ava's messages clearly visible. The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long I thought he'd hung up. Are you kidding me? He finally said. Are you actually kidding me right now? I wish I was. She knew. She knew what Mia was planning to do to you, and she supported it. She laughed about it. And then she sat at dinner with us and acted like nothing happened. Jude, I don't know what she's told you about her past, but she told me she'd never been engaged before. Never even lived with a guy. Said I was her first serious relationship. That stopped me cold. Because according to the private investigator's report, Ava had been in at least 2 long-term relationships that I knew of. One had ended badly when she was caught cheating, and the other had ended when her ex discovered she'd been stealing from his business. Jude, I think you need to do some digging into her background. And I think you need to be very careful about joint finances until you do. 2 days later, he called me back. He'd done the digging. He'd found out about the previous relationships, about the cheating, about the stealing. He'd also discovered that Ava had been asking his friends and family a lot of questions about his financial situation, how much he made, what kind of savings he had, whether he owned his apartment or rented it. But the real kicker was what he found when he checked his credit report. Ava had somehow gotten hold of his social security number and had tried to open 2 credit cards in his name. The applications had been denied because he had a credit freeze, but the attempts were there, clear as day. She's been planning this from the beginning, he told me. Just like your ex planned it with you. These women, they're predators. They find guys like us, decent guys with decent jobs and some savings, and they target us. Have you ever wondered if there's some kind of network of these women? Some underground system where they share information about potential targets and successful strategies? Because the similarities between what Mia tried to do to me and what Ava was apparently planning to do to Jude were too close to be coincidental. Jude confronted Ava that same week. According to him, she tried the same tactics Mia had used on me: tears, denials, claims that it was all a misunderstanding or that she was just being paranoid about financial security because of past trauma. She even tried to turn it around on him, accusing him of not trusting her and being influenced by his bitter friend, meaning me. But Jude had learned from my experience. He didn't give her a chance to manipulate him or talk her way out of it. He ended the engagement immediately, changed his locks, and blocked her on everything. The really wild part? 2 months after Jude dumped Ava, she showed up at my apartment building. Not to see me, but apparently hoping to run into me in the lobby or parking garage. The building's security guard, a guy named Miles who had gotten to know me pretty well, called me at work to let me know there was a woman hanging around asking about me. She says she's an old friend and wants to surprise you, Miles told me. But something about her seems off. She's been here 3 times this week, always asking questions about your schedule, when you come and go, stuff like that. I had Miles send me a photo from the security camera, and sure enough, it was Ava. Apparently, after losing Jude, she had decided I might be worth another shot. Maybe she thought enough time had passed that I'd forgotten about her role in Mia's plan. Maybe she thought she could convince me that she'd just been going along with the group and didn't really mean any of it. Or maybe she was just desperate. I never found out what her plan was, because I had building security ban her from the property and filed a police report for harassment. But it made me realize something important: these women don't just give up when one scheme fails. They regroup, reassess, and try again with a different approach. The incident with Ava also made me appreciate how much my life had improved since getting rid of Mia. My relationship with Iris was everything my relationship with Mia had pretended to be. Honest, supportive, genuine. When Iris said she loved me, I believed her because her actions backed up her words. When she talked about our future, it was about things we would build together, not things she could take from me. The contrast was striking. With Mia, I had always felt like I was walking on eggshells, trying to keep her happy, worried that I wasn't good enough or doing enough. I had chalked it up to normal relationship insecurities, but looking back, I realized it was because some part of me had always sensed that something wasn't right. With Iris, I felt secure. Calm. Like I could just be myself without having to perform or prove anything. She liked me for who I was, not for what I could provide. 6 months later, Iris and I moved in together. It was a big step for me, obviously, given what had happened with Mia. But Iris was patient with my paranoia about joint finances and my need to take things slowly. She understood why I needed to maintain separate bank accounts for a while, why I was hesitant to put her name on any official documents, why I sometimes got quiet when she talked about long-term plans. "I'm not her," she told me one night when I was being particularly neurotic about something minor. "I'm not going to hurt you the way she did. But I also understand that trust has to be rebuilt slowly, and I'm willing to wait as long as it takes." That's when I knew I was falling in love with her for real. Not the desperate, anxious love I had felt for Mia, where I was constantly afraid of losing her. But the calm, secure love that comes when you know someone has your back no matter what. About a year after moving in together, Iris and I were at the grocery store when we ran into someone I hadn't seen since the whole Mia mess, Chloe Cross, another member of the infamous bachelorette group chat. The same Chloe who had written Mia, "You're literally evil, but I respect the hustle." Chloe saw me first and immediately tried to duck down another aisle, but it was too late. I had seen her, and more importantly, Iris had seen her reaction. "Who was that?" Iris asked as we watched Chloe practically sprint toward the exit. "Someone from my past who probably wishes she could disappear right about now." But Chloe didn't make it to the exit before I caught up with her. Not because I wanted to confront her or cause a scene, but because I was genuinely curious about something. "Chloe, wait up," I called after her. She turned around reluctantly, her face red with embarrassment. "Jake, I'm so sorry about everything that happened. I feel terrible about the things I said in that group chat." "Do you?" I asked. "Do you really feel terrible, or do you just feel terrible that you got caught?" She didn't have an answer for that. "I need to ask you something," I continued. "How long did you all know about Mia's plan? Was it just that day, or had she been talking about it for a while?" Chloe looked around nervously, probably hoping some kind of escape route would magically appear. When none did, she sighed. "She'd been talking about it for months," she admitted. "Ever since your grandmother died and you inherited everything. At first, we thought she was just joking around, you know? Like, making dark humor about being a gold digger or whatever. But then she started getting more specific about her plans, and it became clear she was serious. And none of you thought to warn me? We weren't really your friends, Jake. We were her friends. And honestly, most of us thought you were kind of naive anyway. Like, who doesn't make their fiancé sign a prenup when they have that kind of money?" There it was. The truth. I wasn't a person to them, I was just some naive guy who deserved what he got for being too trusting. "For what it's worth," Chloe added, "I heard she's having a really hard time now. Lost her job, can't find another one because word got around about what she did. She's living with some aunt in another state, working retail." "Good," I said, and I meant it. "Maybe she'll think twice before trying to destroy someone else's life." Chloe looked shocked. "That's kind of harsh, don't you think? What's harsh is planning to steal someone's inheritance while lying to their face every day for months. What's harsh is calling them stupid and boring behind their back while pretending to love them. What I did was just make sure there were consequences for her actions." I walked away after that, back to Iris, who had been watching the whole exchange from a distance. She didn't ask me what it was about, she already knew the story, and she trusted me to handle it however I thought was best. That night, lying in bed next to Iris, I realized something that had taken me almost 2 years to fully understand. The best revenge against someone who tried to use you isn't making them suffer, it's building a life so good that you're grateful they showed you who they really were before it was too late. Mia had tried to steal my inheritance, my trust, and my future. Instead, she had given me the greatest gift imaginable, the truth. The truth about who she was, the truth about what I deserved, and the truth about what real love actually looks like. 6 months later, I proposed to Iris. Not because I was trying to replace what I had lost with Mia, but because I had found something genuine that was worth building a life around. The ring I bought her was nothing like the ring I had bought Mia, smaller, simpler, but chosen with complete certainty instead of desperate hope. When I proposed, I told Iris the whole story. Every detail, every emotion, every moment of doubt and anger and eventual peace. I wanted her to understand exactly what she was getting into, exactly what my baggage looked like, exactly why I sometimes still had moments of paranoia or anxiety. Her response was perfect. "I'm not marrying your past, Jake. I'm marrying your future. And our future is going to be nothing like what you went through before." We had a small wedding. Immediate family only, no big reception, no elaborate planning. Just a simple ceremony that celebrated what we had built together instead of trying to impress anyone else. And you know what? It was perfect. No drama, no last-minute disasters, no secret group chats plotting my destruction. Just two people who genuinely loved each other promising to build something real together. The final twist in this whole saga came on our first anniversary. I got a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a card, a generic congratulations on your wedding card from a drugstore. Inside, someone had written, "I hope she makes you happy. You deserve it. M. Mia." After 2 years of silence, she had somehow found out about my marriage and sent a card. No apology, no explanation, just acknowledgement that I had moved on and found happiness. I showed the card to Iris, and we both just laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it felt so small and insignificant compared to the life we had built together. Mia had become a footnote in my story, not the defining chapter she had tried to make herself. I threw the card away without a second thought. Because that's all it deserved, to be thrown away and forgotten, just like the woman who sent it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled the whole situation. If I think I was too harsh, too public, too dramatic in my response to Mia's betrayal. My answer is always the same: I regret trusting someone who didn't deserve it, but I don't regret standing up for myself when I discovered the truth. The screenshots, the cancelled wedding, the shredded dress, all of it was just me refusing to be a victim. Refusing to let someone use me and discard me without consequences. Refusing to pretend that betrayal was acceptable just to avoid making waves. Would I do anything differently if I had to do it over again? Maybe I would have hired the private investigator sooner, done more background checking before getting engaged. But the way I handled the discovery and the aftermath? No regrets whatsoever. Because in the end, the truth always comes out. And when it does, you can either face it head on and deal with the consequences, or you can try to run from it and let it destroy you slowly from the inside. I chose to face it. Mia chose to run. And that, more than anything else, tells you everything you need to know about the difference between us.